Has there finally been a transfer breakthrough at Newcastle United this summer? Not quite, but we're going to be looking at Antony Elanga's future as another twist has been taken in the race to sign him. A former defensive target might well be surprisingly back on the market, and we'll also be looking at the notion that Newcastle may have plenty of targets that aren't being named in the media. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you haven't already, please do subscribe, like the videos and all that jazz. It really helps. As I always say, before we get into it, I just want to thank everybody for their understanding and no recording yesterday. I was about to sit down to record basically, and then the news about Diogo Jota and his brother Andre broke. First as reports, then confirmed, and I just got the sense that it really jarred that I would be sitting here talking about footballers as commodities to be bought and sold when a human being had lost his life in a tragic accident, and thinking of his family and his friends. Been looking at all the tributes from his teammates over social media over the last 24 hours and the pictures of his wedding, and the fact that was only a couple of weeks ago, his 3 kids, the fact that he only had a baby last year. It's so tragic, and it just didn't feel right to be recording off the back of that. And on behalf of myself and you guys and the community here, I just want to say rest in peace to Diogo and Andre. My thoughts are with the family and friends. It's an absolute tragedy. It's still very difficult to get my head around. I felt sick when I read the news yesterday, and my thoughts are with Diogo and Andre's family. There has been a bit of an update on Antony Elanga's future, and we are going to be discussing that on today's episode. Another bid of 55 million was made, and apparently things are getting closer according to Craig Hope, David Ornstein, Fabrizio Romano. I had sort of given a steer in my last video also. Thank you very much for humouring me with my Anthony Gordon suggestion, being very respectful with the debate. There was plenty of votes on both sides, more for keeping him, I must admit, and that's a real positive, because as I say, I'm not really trying to sell Antony Gordon, but a lot of you guys made very reasoned arguments that he should stay. And Newcastle are looking to add another wing into their squad on the right hand side. Antony Elanga, as we've said, is not left-footed. He's not particularly inverted. He is both-footed, and I do understand that a couple of people in the comment section have made that case previously. 31 goal contributions in the last 2 years, really good stuff. 23 years old, Premier League experience. As much as I dislike this, and as much as I've shouted from the rooftops about European markets and value, and the fact that 55 million has gone and got you a player with a world-class ceiling like Tonali or Isak, does Elanga have that? I'm not so sure, but it certainly is a very exciting signing in terms of Premier League players. There have been tentative links with Aston Villa, Arsenal and Tottenham in the past. It does look like he is likely to join Newcastle at this stage, and Newcastle are very comfortable and confident about getting the deal done before pre-season starts on Monday. The weekend could be a busy time for this. As I say, in the last video I did mention that over the sort of next week, 10 days, we'd have a better idea of where Newcastle would be with Elanga, whether it was going to happen or not. Didn't mean that they were going to wait a week to 10 days to make a bid, as has transpired. There is still work to do on this one, because Forest wants 60 million still. Will Newcastle agree that deal? It doesn't feel like it has to be that cut and dry, because Forest are still at the table. Now, we have to learn from the Mark Gahey situation, because we were constantly told that Newcastle and Palace were still at the table, and there was an agreement that was likely to happen, and Palace had a fee set and that Newcastle were edging towards it. This has got some very similar hallmarks, and there was a piece by Mark Douglas in the Eye paper the other day where he talked about the unnamed targets that we'll touch upon at the end of the video, but also about how these negotiations are happening. As I've mentioned before previously about Mark Gahey, this is often very much a chat, a very informal situation where ballpark figures are discussed over WhatsApp or in a room one-to-one. It's very rare that they actually sit down and put, as I said last year, put a pile of money on a table and put it across the table like a sort of business deal that we see in films. It's not like that at all. It's very much of an informal thing where conversations happen, and they're ongoing, they're fluid. So that's why maybe to answer a couple of questions about why it's taken so long to make a bid or to have an official move. There's often conversations that are ongoing. It's not just as straightforward as bid rejected, bid accepted. these conversations go on for a while, and Newcastle are fairly confident that they can make a move with this one. We'll see how it progresses beyond this, though, because Forest are still digging their heels in, and David Ornstein said yesterday that there's still a little bit of work to do on the players' side as well, although because of the relationships he's got with the players at Newcastle, Isak being the obvious one, but also agent Will Asula, and I was going to sort of touch on this. It's been really strange watching this play out, the pair of them on holiday together. They are just friends, but Will Asula sort of joking with fans getting in touch. They know what they're doing with that. If I was a Nottingham Forest fan, I'd not be particularly happy with the way that that's played out in public, and I do sympathise with a few Nottingham Forest fans who are saying that Newcastle fans have been a little bit trigger happy with their sort of approach to this in the social media chat, and it's riled them up very similarly to Liverpool fans and Isak, and I understand it's a small section of social media fans. It does really feel like this is the end game for Elanga. Don't count your chickens until he stood in front of the East Stand with the scarf above his head, all of that stuff. And there are still warnings over the Mark Gahey situation. Newcastle have been here where it has felt like it's closing in, and then it didn't. It just depends on what Nottingham Forest want to do. But it does feel like they are more open to selling him than Crystal Palace were with Mark Gahey. It hasn't been nearly as public as that one was. That felt like Steve Parish was making a real power play with using Newcastle's name in the media. That hasn't really happened this time. As I say, I'm not privy to up-to-date latest talks on the transfer negotiations, but there has been a real change, as I said, since the João Pedro deal when he went to Chelsea, and a focus of the mind to get Antony Elanga through the door, and it does feel like this one is very much close to happening. Personally, as I say, I don't think he's worth 55 million, but club and market value are very different things, as I've previously said, and for a player with that amount of goals and assists over the last couple of years, in one year that Forest was struggling, and another one where they got into Europe and got to an FA Cup semi-final. When a player's on that length of contract, he's that age, you've kind of got to pay up, and he's two-footed as well. And I know I'd rather he was inverted fully. I'd rather that was the situation. I've said that already, but it feels like this one is close. So there's really no point fighting it anymore. It does feel like Newcastle will be making this signing. Let me know in the comment section what you think about 55 million for Antony Elanga. We'll see if that is enough. Obviously, that isn't guaranteed, but the noises have changed over the last week. Does it have to be 60 million? Who knows? And also, would you pay 60 million? If they reject 55, would you go in and get it done for 60? And lots of people have split on that. Should they just pay the money? Should they look elsewhere? Let me know, because people are getting a little bit twitchy, I think, in the transfer situation now, where there's no deals done before pre-season. It's getting to that stage. Should Newcastle just go and get the deal done for Antony Elanga? Do let me know in the comment section below. Apologies if you can hear my voice is not great today. I've got a bit of a scratchy throat and a bit of a cold, so I do apologise for that. The other player we're going to be talking about today is Alex Thiaw. Now, you'll notice that a couple of days ago I said that he was basically off to Como, and that's how it appeared. There was a deal agreed, £21 million, but he is apparently not convinced by the offer, and there's been lots of talk over social media over the last 12 hours that Newcastle have an opportunity to go and secure this deal for £21 million. A very quick, very tall, very good on the ball defender, as we discussed many times last year. He wasn't a key target for Newcastle, I think, because game time is an issue. He's not played over 22 league games in a season for Milan. He's only had one serious injury in his career. That was 2 years ago when he had a hamstring problem that kept him out for a few months. So what's the problem there? Is he not ready to start? Is he not of the level? And it's interesting that Como are a very ambitious project with Cesc Fabregas in charge, but they don't have Champions League football. And it does sort of strike me as is this deal too good to be true? Is it too easy to do for Newcastle? Will they actually go in to do it? £21 million would certainly save a lot of money for another target up front, or James Trafford's in the picture as well, around 30-35. Newcastle, as we've discussed, have between 125 and 150, anywhere between that we've discussed over the last few days as their budget. So would Thiaw, as a player who's very much of the mould in terms of tall, good on the ball, quick, got Champions League experience, played for a big club in Milan, Is that the right deal to do at 21 million, even though the fact that he's had 3 seasons there and not played over 22 games in a full campaign? I think that is a bit of a concern for me. He's never actually played more than 22 league games in this whole season at all, because he only played 19 as his maximum at Schalke. He's got 2 years in his contract as well. There isn't any concrete evidence that Newcastle will go in for Thiaw, but would you like that to happen because of the valuation? Because he is very much the right style of player. He is very much a good option in terms of price as well. But we talked about Leonardo Balerdi, we talked about Mark Gahey a lot. That seems to be cooling because of Liverpool's interest, but Liverpool still haven't nailed that one down as well. Liverpool still haven't decided whether they're going to pay the money or wait a year. Whether he's going to get first team football at Anfield seems to be a sticking point from his perspective. Is there an opportunity to go in and make another challenge for Mark Gahey as well? There's Giorgio Scalvini, who we discussed, who's Steve Nixon's dream target and very much a player that Newcastle are interested in. That one feels more like the premium target. Would you rather spend that on Scalvini or half the price on Thiaw with all the risks that come with that? Again, let me know in the comment section. To me, that feels a little bit dubious because they have had an opportunity to move in the past and they haven't done it, and the fact that he's also not played more than 22 league games in a season in his entire career is a little bit of a concern to me. Quickly, we're going to also talk on Mark Douglas's piece from The Eye, where he said that there are unnamed targets that haven't been in the public domain. And I have noticed that people like Edmund Tapsoba, Samu, the striker from Porto, and Magnus Hakaliush are names that we've discussed on this channel and have gone into the public domain. It'd be interesting to see if Newcastle do have those players on the list. As I say, they have been interested in Xavi Simons in the past. Edmund Tapsoba's previously been on that list. As I say, those players are high-end targets, though, and I think if they're getting Elanga, and Elanga, as I mentioned at the top of the video and earlier on this week, he's become their main focus since João Pedro moved to Chelsea. Let me know in the comment section below. Thanks so much for joining me on this video and understanding why I wasn't here yesterday, and also getting involved in the Anthony Gordon situation. My throat is not really in the best shape as well, so I do apologise if that's come across. If there's anything to talk about tomorrow, I am open to doing another video because I do have a bit of time, and also we do have one to catch up on. But it depends if there's anything newsworthy or anything that comes to mind. Let me know in the comment section if you have any suggestions for anything you want me to discuss tomorrow. Possibly see you then, but if not, I'll see you on Monday for the next episode of NUFC Transfer Daily. Cheers.